If you want a free week trial at The Athletic and not 20%, not 30%, not 40%, but 50% off your subscription, head over to theathletic.com/thinkingbasketball. They have a collection of the industry's best, including names like David Aldridge, former Grizzlies VP John Hollinger, and many more. They cover local teams, they're ad-free, you can customize your feed in their app, and you help support this channel by signing up at theathletic.com/thinkingbasketball for your free trial today. Okay, 5 thoughts time, and today's first thought is about Donovan Mitchell's jump this year. The 23-year-old has made steady improvements in year 3. He's grown more comfortable as an on-ball passer and decision maker, and his pull-up jumper and floater game have been more under control this year, and as a result, more accurate. Mitchell is taking a whopping 10 mid-range shots per 75 possessions, behind only Kawhi Leonard, DeMar DeRozan, and Kyrie Irving, and he's right there with those players in terms of accuracy, making 46% of these. The comfort with which he gets into these shots and his 86% free throw shooting make me think this proficiency is here to stay, and such 3-level scoring should give Mitchell's offense a much-needed boost come playoff time. For instance, last year I noted how frequently he had his shots blocked on drives into the paint, and this year he's nearly halved the frequency of his blocked attempts. To my eye, this is because he's just physically sturdier, knifing into spots and being more patient about getting into his shots. His turnovers are also down a touch as his passing game has inched forward, and his outside shot looks smoother as well, which appears to be the result of better balance. All of this has helped the Jazz offensive efficiency climb into the top 10 this season, and Mitchell's still part of some of the best defensive units in the league in front of Rudy Gobert. I don't think he's an all-league defender, but I love the way he gets into the ball handler and navigates point-of-attack screens. This is critical for Utah's defense because staying connected on these takes away the pull-up 3 against Gobert's drop, and the Jazz can funnel opponents toward the Stifle Tower once they're inside the arc. Here, Mitchell's beat while overplaying a handoff, and so he peels off to the screener by design, and it's a steal. Eric Bledsoe lives off these drives into the open lane, and Mitchell stonewalls him. Impact metrics still view him more like a top 50 player than an all-star, but that's because they view him as a negative on defense. His offensive-only numbers in these stats are all around all-star levels. And I see Mitchell's defense as more like a small positive, and along with small offensive improvements, it's enough for me to view him as a borderline all-star in 2020. Thought number 2 is about Darren Jackson's ridiculous shooting. Earlier this year, I examined how Jackson's fouling issues have sidelined his defensive potential, but his offensive game is ahead of schedule. Jackson is not only making 41% of his threes, but he's taking over 10 triples per 100 possessions. Jaren would become just the 41st player ever to make 40% of threes at that volume. These aren't just spot-ups either. Jaren gets into these off of movement and bombs them quickly from all over the court, and teams might want to guard him from out there at some point. There is a hint of Steph Curry in the way he relocates and just wrist flicks these things from all over the court, and that has added an extra dimension to Memphis's suddenly dangerous offense. That's just absurd for a center. Here, Minnesota is set to defend a pick and roll, but instead Jackson just stops in the open space because you can't drop off him like this and he will make you pay. As noted in this week's Patreon Power Rankings, the Grizzlies have a sparkling 117 offensive rating since December 1st, and Jaren's three-point shooting is a contributing factor. I really don't know what the ceiling is for Jackson's shooting, but at 20 years old, he's adding an off-ball element that few big men have ever achieved at any age. Thought number 3 keeps us in Memphis, and it's a nod to rookie Brandon Clarke's floater. Clarke has made 54% of his 26 floaters, according to the NBA's video logging, and that has him shooting 56% from the mid-range. It's rare for regular mid-range shooters to be above 50%, but Clarke's touch on this thing has been all-reliable since he was back at Gonzaga, where he shot 70% on two-point shots last year. Big men have rarely ever used a floater like this, and it's natural to question whether this thing is sustainable. Clarke was a poor free throw shooter in college, although he's made 55 of 68 to start his NBA career. If I had to place a wager, I'd bet on his combination of floor routine hops and soft touch, making this thing one of the best floaters in NBA history. Oh, and his lob finishing has provided a valuable vertical target for another Memphis rookie who we'll examine in the near future. Thought number 4 is about Jalen Brunson, who has flown under the radar in his first 2 seasons, but is one of the better backup point guards in the league right now. That same sly craftiness that thrived at Villanova is carrying over into the league, where he uses his body well and finds little creases for scoop shots and floaters. Brunson is already a strong passer, capable of uncorking this bouncer that's so good I'm upgrading it from a dime to a quarter. He can playmake too, finding the bread and butter passes out of pick and roll like this, and in addition to little laydowns, he has tight pocket passes too. All this has created a statistical oddity in which Dallas' second unit, led by Brunson and DeLon Wright, have been so good that they've suppressed Luka Doncic's plus-minus stats. In 543 minutes without Doncic, Brunson lineups are an incredible plus 10.7 per 100 with nearly a 115 offensive rating. And in those minutes, Brunson has the playmaking profile of a higher-end point guard. His efficiency is dented some by uncharacteristically poor outside shooting right now. He's been mired in a slump for about a month. But if that shooting comes around, he should have a really nice career ahead of him. And finally, thought number 5 is about James Harden's passing. His cartoonish scoring numbers and step-back threes get all the attention, but the beard is a premier offensive engine because of his passing game. It's not quite as crisp as it's been in prior years, but Harden's still one of the best on-ball passers in the league. His bread and butter comes off of 2 familiar sets. First, when he gets downhill in isolation, he has this drop-off down pat. He often slips it off with a no-look bounce pass like this, just flicking it over to the dunker spot while looking at the hoop. And he can make this pass in more fluid situations with that little left-to-right wrist flick. Notice the manipulation here as he holds this defender in place by looking to the wing, which lets Westbrook slip in undetected. Harden also loves the lob when he gets a step and the help commits, and he even uses jump passes to manipulate shot blockers when they're in position to defend this lob. Harden's not in pick and roll often these days, but he targets the middle roll man like this frequently. Here's handoff action where James looks to Westbrook and still hits the rolling Tucker. And if the roller is completely occupied, he'll occasionally skip it into the corner like this. Note that all of these passes are left to right, but things aren't quite as smooth when dishing from right to left. This was a key to Milwaukee's extreme strategy last year against Harden, where they sat on his left shoulder and invited him to drive right. This right-to-left skip pass isn't natural for him, making the dangerous corner pass harder to access. It's not that he never makes right-to-left passes, there's a nice righty laydown, but there's certainly a directional dominance in his passing game, and so it's harder for him to push defenses that collapse off his left corner. He's far more comfortable whipping this out across his body with his dominant hand. Harden does drop right-handed dimes, going 5-hole here in transition, and his fast break dishes are high level in general. There's even some subtle manipulation here with the little look away before threading the needle. Harden's head is always up and looking for these in transition, and he'll connect on them frequently, but he also misses these sometimes, airmailing this easy layup, and here he's off the mark, tossing it ahead to Westbrook. These accuracy issues aren't limited to transition. This one's too high for Capella, and a minute later he has another lob, but this one's way too short. Some of these passes have huge bang for their buck, but Harden can misread on these too, throwing this into traffic when he thinks the roll will be open. Despite these misreads, some accuracy issues, and left-handed dominance, his vision is still fantastic, making James Harden one of the better passers in the league today. There is a great story in The Athletic recently by John Krasinski on Timberwolves assistant David Vanterpool that connects to the recent Karl Anthony Towns video. Check that out, theathletic.com/thinkingbasketball for 50% off and a free week trial. Otherwise, you can support this channel at patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. Thanks so much for watching, and I do hope that you are having a great day.